My name is Lauren Baily, and I was 16 years old when my mother said those words to me. I don't remember a time when I wasn't called the smart one. It started early, maybe around second grade, when I brought home my first perfect report card. My mother's face lit up in a way I rarely saw otherwise. She called my grandmother immediately, her voice bright and proud, reciting my grades like they were lottery numbers. I felt warm, noticed, important. That feeling became something I chased without realizing it. By middle school, I had learned to perform. Straight A's weren't enough. I joined honor societies, competed in academic bowls, tutored younger students. My mother's friends knew my GPA before they knew my favorite color. At family gatherings, she'd steer conversations toward my achievements with practiced ease. "Lauren just won another award," she'd say, smiling like she'd won it herself. I'd stand there, awkward and quiet, while adults I barely knew told me how proud I must make her. And I was proud to be her proof that she'd done something right. But at home, when the audience disappeared, so did the warmth. I started to notice it in small ways first. My younger sister Hannah could ask for anything: new clothes, money for movies, help with homework, and our mother would give it without hesitation. But when I needed something, there was always a pause. A slight tilt of her head, a question beneath the question. "Do you really need help, or are you just being lazy?" I learned not to ask. I bought my own school supplies with babysitting money. I borrowed textbooks instead of buying them. I figured things out, and my mother praised me for it. "You're so independent," she'd say, like it was a compliment, like I'd chosen it. But independence wasn't a choice. It was an expectation, one I didn't understand I was living under until it was too late. The first real crack came during my junior year. I needed money for an AP exam fee. Not much, maybe $30. I asked her one evening after dinner, casual, assuming it wouldn't be an issue. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. "If you're so smart," she said, "figure it out yourself." After that night, I started paying attention. It wasn't just the exam fee, it was everything. When I needed new running shoes for track because mine had holes in the soles, my mother glanced at them and said, "You'll manage until the end of the season." When the school announced a trip to Washington, D.C. for history students, I didn't even bother asking. I already knew what she'd say. But Hannah? Hannah asked for concert tickets on a Tuesday and had them by Friday. I told myself it didn't bother me. Hannah was younger, she needed more guidance. I was the capable one, the one who didn't need hand-holding. It felt like a compliment at first, like being let into an exclusive club of people who had their lives together. I wore my independence like armor, but armor gets heavy when you never take it off. I started working after school at a local diner, clearing tables and refilling coffee for hours under fluorescent lights that made my eyes ache. I saved every paycheck, keeping the money in a drawer under my socks because I didn't have a bank account yet. I'd come home exhausted, eat dinner in silence, then stay up until midnight finishing homework. My grades never slipped. I wouldn't let them. My mother bragged about it to anyone who would listen. "Lauren works and still gets straight A's," she'd tell her coworkers, her yoga instructor, the woman behind her in the grocery store line. I raised her to be self-sufficient. She said it like it was her achievement, like I'd absorbed some lesson she'd carefully taught, instead of just adapted to survive the gaps she refused to fill. I never corrected her. I didn't know how. Hannah, meanwhile, floated through high school without a part-time job, without worry, without the kind of exhaustion that made your bones feel like lead. She'd complain about having too much homework, 2 assignments, and my mother would rub her back sympathetically. I'd watch from the kitchen table, buried under 5 different projects, and feel something ugly twist in my chest. I didn't hate Hannah. I hated that I had to earn things she was simply given. I hated that my competence had become my prison. And I hated that somewhere along the way, I'd started believing I didn't deserve help, that needing it meant I was failing at being the person my mother had decided I was. I was 17 when the acceptance letter arrived. It came in a thick envelope, the kind that means yes before you even open it. I sat on my bed and read it 3 times, my hands shaking slightly. A prestigious university, a partial scholarship, not a full ride, but enough that it felt real, possible. I let myself hope. That night at dinner, I told my mother. I kept my voice steady, casual, like I wasn't asking for the world. I explained the scholarship, the remaining costs, the payment plans I'd already researched. I had spreadsheets, I had backup options, I had done everything right. She listened with her fork halfway to her mouth, nodding occasionally. When she finished, she set the fork down gently and smiled. "That's wonderful, Lauren. I'm proud of you." I waited. There was always a but hiding in her pauses. "But if you're so smart," she continued, her smile tightening just slightly, "then take care of your own expenses. You've always been independent. Don't stop now." The words landed like a door closing. Quiet. Final. I sat there, frozen, while Hannah scrolled through her phone across the table, and my mother returned to her meal as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just told me that my future, my education, my one chance to build something bigger than this house and this silence was mine to figure out alone. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her how she could say that after years of using my achievements like trophies she'd earned. I just nodded. "Okay," I said. "I'll figure it out." I excused myself, walked upstairs, and closed my bedroom door. That night, lying in the dark, I felt something shift. It wasn't anger, though anger was there, humming beneath my skin. It wasn't sadness, though sadness pressed heavy on my chest. It was something colder, clearer. I realized my mother had been doing this my entire life, using my competence as permission to neglect me. Every time I succeeded on my own, it justified her absence. Every time I didn't complain, it proved I didn't need her. She'd built a narrative where my independence was a gift she'd given me, not a burden I'd carried because she refused to help. And the worst part, I'd believed it. I'd spent years trying to earn her pride, her attention, her love, not understanding that she'd already decided I didn't need those things, that smart girls could survive without them. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If I was truly on my own, then I'd act like it. Completely. I stopped asking for things the next morning. Not dramatically, not with an announcement or a slammed door. I just stopped. When I needed something, I found another way. When I had a question, I Googled it. When I wanted to talk, I called a friend instead. My mother didn't notice, or if she did, she didn't say anything. I picked up more shifts at the diner, working every weekend and 3 nights a week. My manager liked me because I never called out, never complained, and always stayed late when someone else flaked. I applied for every scholarship I could find, local ones, national ones, essay contests with $50 prizes. I filled out financial aid forms alone at the kitchen table after everyone had gone to bed, deciphering terms I didn't fully understand because asking my mother felt impossible now. I planned my entire future in silence. When I won a regional writing competition in April, I didn't tell anyone at home. The award came with $500 and a plaque with my name engraved on it. I accepted it at a ceremony my mother knew nothing about, shook hands with people who congratulated me, and drove home alone. I put the plaque in my closet behind a stack of old sweaters. When I got accepted into an honors program that summer, I read the email twice, felt a flicker of pride, then archived it. My mother asked me once, in passing, how college applications were going. "Fine," I said. "Hear back from anywhere yet?" "A few places." She waited for me to elaborate. I didn't. After a moment, she turned back to whatever she'd been doing, and I returned to my homework. Family dinners became performances. I showed up on time, set the table when asked, answered questions with pleasant, surface-level responses. How was school? Fine. How was work? Busy. What are you doing this weekend? Studying. My tone was never cold, never rude, just empty. Hannah filled the silence I left behind, talking about her day, her friends, her plans. My mother listened with the kind of attention I used to crave. I watched them sometimes, the way you watch strangers on a train, mildly curious, entirely detached. No one noticed I'd left the conversation months ago. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger required energy, and I had none to spare. I wasn't punishing anyone. Punishment implied they'd done something I still cared enough about to make them regret. I was just gone. Physically present, emotionally unreachable. I moved through the house like a tenant, polite and unobtrusive, counting down the days until I could leave for real. I didn't need my mother's approval anymore. I didn't need her pride or her validation or her love. I'd stopped waiting for her to show up. And in the space where that hope used to live, there was only quiet. I moved into my dorm in August with everything I owned fitting in the back of my car. My mother came to help, though help mostly meant standing in the doorway of my tiny room, making comments about how small it was, how far from home, how expensive the meal plan seemed. I unpacked in silence, hanging clothes and stacking textbooks while she watched. When we finished, she hugged me, brief, awkward, and told me to call often. Of course, I said. I didn't. She called me instead, 3 times the first week. I let most of them go to voicemail. When I did pick up, I kept it short. Yes, classes were fine. Yes, I was eating enough. Yes, I'd made some friends. No, I didn't need anything. The conversations lasted maybe 3 minutes before I found a reason to go. Study group, library closing, roommate needed help with something. My mother filled the silence with reassurances I hadn't asked for. She'd say, "I know you're busy with school," like she was giving me permission to be unavailable, like my distance was about time management and not something deeper she didn't want to name. I let her believe it. Meanwhile, I built a life she knew nothing about. I joined a workshop led by a professor who actually remembered my name, who read my essays and told me they mattered. I made friends who stayed up late talking about things that felt real, philosophy, politics, dreams that weren't tied to anyone's expectations but our own. I got an internship at a nonprofit downtown, writing grant proposals and learning skills I'd never thought to ask my mother about. I was good at this, at building something from scratch, alone. Thanksgiving break came faster than I expected. My mother called 2 weeks in advance to confirm I was coming home. I hesitated, then said yes. One night. That was all I could manage. When I walked through the front door, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. Dinner was strange. My mother asked questions she thought sounded interested. How were my grades? Had I declared a major yet? Was I thinking about internships? I answered each one politely. Fine, not yet. Already have one. An internship? She looked surprised. When did that happen? September. Why didn't you tell me? I shrugged. Didn't think to. Hannah, now a high school senior, filled the gaps with chatter about her own life. Prom plans, college visits our mother had driven her to. I listened without comment, cutting my food into small, even pieces. My mother kept glancing at me, her smile faltering at the edges. After dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. "You've been so distant," she said, trying to sound casual. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine." "You barely talk to me anymore." "I'm busy." "It feels like more than that." Her voice sharpened. "Why are you being so cold?" I dried my hands slowly, deliberately, then turned to face her. "I'm not being cold," I said. "I'm just being independent, like you wanted." The room went quiet. She stared at me, her mouth opening slightly like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. I held her gaze, calm and steady, until she looked away. I finished the dishes, said goodnight, and left the next morning before anyone else woke up. I didn't go home for winter break. My mother called 2 weeks before Christmas, assuming I'd already bought a bus ticket. I told her I was spending the holidays with my roommate's family in Vermont. There was a pause on the other end of the line, long enough that I almost thought the call had dropped. "Oh," she said finally. "That's unexpected. I invited me a while ago. I thought it'd be nice to see a different part of the country." Another pause. "We were planning to have everyone together." "I know. Tell Hannah I'm sorry I'll miss it." I wasn't sorry, but I said it anyway because it was easier than the truth. Vermont was quiet. My roommate's family asked questions that felt genuine, listened when I answered, and didn't treat my presence like a performance. On Christmas morning, her mother handed me a small wrapped box, a journal with my initials embossed on the cover. "For all those essays you're always writing," she said, smiling. I cried in the bathroom later, not because I was sad, but because I couldn't remember the last time someone had given me something that felt like it was meant for me. When summer came, I took an internship in another state. My mother found out through a text I sent 3 days before I left. She called immediately. "You're leaving for the entire summer? It's a good opportunity. You didn't think to discuss this with me first?" "There wasn't anything to discuss. I already accepted the offer." Her voice climbed. "Lauren, I barely see you anymore. You never call. You didn't come home for Christmas. Now you're leaving again?" "I'm building my resume," I said, calmly. "Isn't that what you wanted, for me to be self-sufficient?" Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, trying to find an argument that didn't require her to admit what she'd done. She couldn't, so she pivoted. "I sacrificed so much for you," she said, her tone sliding into something fragile, wounded. "I worked hard to give you opportunities, and this is how you repay me?" I leaned back against my dorm room wall, staring at the ceiling. "And I'm grateful. I turned out independent, just like you raised me to be." The line went quiet again. Then she hung up. Hannah started texting me more after that. Short messages at first. "Mom's been weird lately. You okay?" Then longer ones. She told me our mother asked about me constantly now, scrolling through my sparse social media posts like she was searching for clues. She told me family dinners felt empty without me, that she hadn't realized how much I'd held things together until I wasn't there anymore. I read the messages, but didn't know how to explain it to her. How do you tell someone that you didn't leave out of anger, but out of exhaustion? That you didn't hate the people you left behind, you just couldn't carry their weight anymore. Meanwhile, I built a life my mother had no access to. I networked. I published articles in small online journals. I got recommendations from professors who knew my work, my goals, my name. I went to dinner parties with people who treated me like an equal, not a project. I dated someone briefly who called me brilliant without needing me to prove it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was just free. And my mother's calls, once insistent and frequent, started coming less often. When they did, I answered with the same polite distance I'd perfected years ago. She'd ask surface questions, I'd give surface answers. We'd say goodbye, and I'd return to my life, the one she didn't know, couldn't touch, and would never be a part of unless I chose to let her in. I hadn't chosen that yet. I didn't know if I ever would. I graduated on a sunny Saturday in May, wearing a gold honors cord and a calm I'd earned over 4 years of building a life entirely my own. My mother wasn't there. I didn't invite her, didn't send her the date, the time, the location. When the university mailed information packets to families, I'd updated my contact preferences, so hers went straight to my inbox instead. I deleted them without reading. The ceremony was long, filled with speeches about resilience and new beginnings. When they called my name, I walked across the stage and accepted my diploma while my friends cheered from the audience. My mentor, Professor Brennan, was there. So was my roommate's family, the ones who'd given me the journal 2 Christmases ago. They took me to dinner afterward, toasted my achievements, asked about my job offer in another city. I posted one photo on social media that night, just me and my friends, arms around each other, grinning. The caption was simple: "We made it." I didn't think about my mother until 2 days later, when she called. I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity maybe, or the last thread of obligation I hadn't fully cut, made me pick up. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice was tight, shaking slightly. I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Tell you what?" "That you graduated. Your aunt saw the photo. She called to congratulate me, and I had no idea what she was talking about." I didn't apologize, didn't rush to explain, just waited. "Lauren, how could you not tell me? I'm your mother." "I didn't think you'd be interested," I said, my tone even. "You've always said I should handle my own life." "That's not..." She stopped, started again. "I've always supported you." The words hung in the air, flimsy and false. I could have argued, could have listed every time she'd dismissed me, every moment she'd chosen convenience over connection, but I didn't. There was no point. She wasn't calling because she'd realized what she'd done. She was calling because someone else had noticed her absence, and that embarrassed her. "I know you did your best," I said quietly. "Then why are you shutting me out?" "I'm not shutting you out. I'm just living my life, independently, the way you taught me to." Silence. I could hear her breathing, uneven and shallow, like she was trying to find something to say that would undo the distance between us. But there was nothing. No apology that could reach back far enough. No explanation that would make me forget. "I have to go. I'm meeting someone for dinner." "Lauren." "Take care, Mom." I hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone, waiting to feel something. Guilt, maybe? Sadness? Regret? But all I felt was quiet. My mother was somewhere on the other end of that call, holding her phone, realizing that she had no real connection to my life anymore, not because I'd screamed or slammed doors or written her an angry letter, but because I'd simply stopped including her. And somehow, that was worse. I accepted the job offer in August and signed the lease on my new apartment 3 days later. I didn't call my mother to tell her. I updated my address with the post office, packed my things, and hired movers. A week after I'd settled in, I posted a picture on Facebook, my new living room, sunlight streaming through tall windows, a caption that read, "New city, new chapter." My mother called within an hour. "You moved?" "Last week." "And you didn't think to tell me?" I was unpacking books, organizing them on shelves I'd assembled myself. "I've been busy with the transition. It's been hectic." "Where are you?" I told her the city. She went quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear her calculating the distance, far enough that dropping by unannounced wasn't an option. "I'd like to visit, see your new place. Maybe once I'm settled. Work's pretty demanding right now." She tried twice more over the next few months. Both times I was busy. A project deadline, a work trip, a friend visiting from out of town. The excuses were real enough that she couldn't argue, vague enough that she couldn't pin me down. When we finally did meet, at a coffee shop halfway between her town and mine, neutral territory, it felt like a business meeting. She asked about my job. I gave her the polished version, the kind you'd put on LinkedIn. She asked about my apartment. I said it was nice, small but comfortable. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no, not seriously. Every answer was true. None of them meant anything. She tried to fill the silence with updates about Hannah, about relatives I barely remembered, about her own life. I nodded in the right places, sipped my coffee, checked my watch once when she paused too long. "You seem distant," she said finally. "I'm just tired. Work's been a lot." She didn't push. Maybe she didn't know how. A few weeks later, Hannah told me our mother had been bragging about me again at a family gathering, telling everyone about my impressive job, my nice apartment in the city, how proud she was of how independent I'd become. Hannah said it felt strange hearing her talk like that. "She doesn't actually know what you do," Hannah texted, "or who you spend time with, or what you care about." I read the message twice, then put my phone down. My mother could observe my life from a distance, through sparse social media posts, through secondhand updates, through whatever version of me she'd constructed in her head. She could take credit for raising someone successful. She could tell people I turned out well, but she couldn't touch any of it, couldn't be part of it, couldn't access the version of me that laughed with coworkers over drinks, that stayed up late reading novels that made me cry, that felt joy in small, private moments she'd never witness. I'd built a life she could see but never enter, and I felt nothing about that. No satisfaction, no bitterness, just the quiet indifference of someone who'd already moved on. 3 years after I moved, my mother called on a Tuesday evening. I was making dinner, chopping vegetables with the kind of rhythmic precision that came from living alone and liking it. I almost didn't answer. But something about the time, not a holiday, not my birthday, just a random Tuesday, made me curious. Lauren? Her voice was softer than usual, uncertain. Do you have a minute? I put down the knife. Sure. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, gathering courage for something. I've been thinking a lot lately, she said, about us, about how things have been. I didn't respond, just waited. I know I wasn't always the mother you needed. I may not have been perfect, but I did my best. I want you to know that. The apology, if that's what it was, hung in the air between us, vague and self-protective. She wasn't saying she was wrong, just that she'd tried, as if effort alone absolved everything. I leaned against the counter, staring out my kitchen window at the city lights. I know you did, I said quietly. She exhaled, relieved, like my understanding was the same as forgiveness. And I turned out exactly how you raised me, independent. The relief vanished. Silence filled the line again, heavier this time. That's not what I meant, she said, her voice cracking slightly. I didn't mean for you to feel like you couldn't come to me. I know. Then why does it feel like I've lost you? I closed my eyes. The answer was honest, maybe the most honest thing she'd said to me in years. But honesty didn't undo the past. It didn't change the fact that I'd spent my adolescence earning the right to be ignored, that I'd built my entire adult life in the absence she'd created. I haven't lost you, I said. I'm right here. But we both knew that wasn't true. Can we start over? She asked, her voice small. Try again? I thought about it, not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to give her question the respect of genuine thought. We're fine, Mom, I said finally, my tone gentle. You don't have to worry about me. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She didn't say anything for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was resigned. Okay. I should go. Dinner's burning. It wasn't, but she didn't argue. We said goodbye and I hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone still in hand, and felt nothing but the quiet certainty that some distances are permanent, not because of anger or spite, but because certain wounds don't heal. They just become part of the landscape you learn to navigate around. My mother wanted closure, a reset, a second chance, but I'd already found my closure. I'd found it 3 years ago when I stopped waiting for her to show up. I'm 30 now, and my life looks nothing like the one I imagined at 16. It's better. I have a career I'm proud of, work that feels meaningful, colleagues who respect me, projects that challenge me in ways that make me grow. I have friends who know me, really know me, not the polished version I learned to perform, but the messy, honest version I kept hidden for years. I have an apartment filled with things I chose, books that made me cry, art that makes me stop and stare, furniture I assembled myself on quiet Sunday afternoons. I built this life brick by brick, alone, and I'm proud of that. My mother and I talk maybe 3 times a year. Birthdays, major holidays. The conversations are pleasant, surface level, the kind you'd have with a distant relative you're fond of but don't really know. She asks how I'm doing. I say I'm well. She updates me on Hannah, on family news, on her garden. I listen politely. We say we should visit soon, knowing neither of us will make it happen. I don't hate her. I don't think about her much at all. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if she regrets it. If she lies awake thinking about the daughter who drifted away, wondering where exactly she lost me. If she's connected the dots between the girl who needed help with an exam fee and the woman who doesn't call anymore. But then morning comes, and I make coffee in my quiet kitchen, and the wondering fades. It doesn't matter anymore. I learned something my mother probably didn't intend to teach me, that being told to take care of yourself can be a gift if you choose to see it that way. She wanted me to be independent so she didn't have to show up. I became independent so I didn't need her to. I did exactly what she asked, and in doing so, I outgrew her. There's no victory in that, no vindication, just the quiet reality of two people who share DNA and history, but not much else. She's not a villain in my story. She's just someone who was supposed to be there and wasn't. And I'm someone who learned to stop waiting. I sit by my window sometimes, in the evenings when the city lights start to glow, and feel something I never felt growing up: peace. Not the kind that comes from winning an argument or proving someone wrong, the kind that comes from finally, truly being free, free from needing her approval, free from performing competence to earn basic care, free from the exhausting work of trying to be enough for someone who'd already decided I didn't need anything. I'm enough for myself now, and that's not something she gave me, even though she thinks she did. It's something I built in the space her absence created. My phone buzzes, a text from a friend asking if I want to grab dinner. I smile, reply yes, and grab my jacket. Outside, the city hums with life, strangers passing, lights flickering, a world that doesn't know my history and doesn't need to. I step into it, calm and certain, carrying nothing but myself. And for the first time in my life, that feels like more than enough.